What's up, everyone? Happy Monday. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, maybe gained a few pounds, but here we are, brand new week. This is the TDR Traded Black podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network. I am your host, Shad Dales. Today's podcast, interesting news as we're seeing more and more developments and movement overseas in Germany. Lawmakers have agreed to revise a marijuana legalization bill. What does this mean for adult use, and could we see it pass in the near term? Well, that's the reason why you want to listen to today's podcast. So let's welcome in our two co-hosts. First up, TDR lead financial writer and analyst, Benjamin A. Smith, along with TDR millennial entrepreneur, Anthony Varrell. Good to see you guys. Missed you guys last week.
How's it going? I will be seeing you in Vegas tomorrow morning.
Looking forward to it. Early flights, but we got a jam-packed week. We'll be doing a live stream at Planet 13 Dispensary on Wednesday, which will be fun. But first up, let's get today's podcast underway. A lot of people want to talk about what's going on. So our first segment, as usual, here on the TDR Traded Black podcast is Into the Wire. We basically outline the biggest headlines, cannabis, psychedelics, crypto, and AI related. We first begin with news that came out roughly around 45 minutes ago. Breaking news out of New York involving the New York Cannabis Board, who okayed the settlement licensing suit brought by veterans, which really paves the way for more dispensaries opening. So in a nutshell, the Office of Cannabis Management's Cannabis Control Board voted to approve resolution to settle the lawsuit brought by service-disabled military veterans and a coalition of medical cannabis dispensaries referred to as ROs. So Anthony, what's this mean, you think, with this settlement being, I guess this lawsuit being, is it settled right now? Like,
it's settled. It's officially settled. There is no indication as per the arrangements of the settlement, but this was the major blockade that was holding up the New York market from moving forward. Boris is already tweeting about it. Several other people that I follow are already tweeting about it. This is a huge step in the right direction for the New York cannabis market. This was a major injunction. This was literally what was blocking up the dam. I'm not going to say it's smooth sailing from here. The report that we're going to talk about from the adult use markets that Pablo published about a week ago, the New York market is such a mess that he omitted the entire state from any of the growth prospects for any of the businesses. And this was all predicated on adult use markets that could hit their stride from now until 2025. So yes, this is a net positive. How positive? It's yet to be determined.
Yeah. I guess that's the big question. How positive, right, Ben?
Yeah. As long as we get the blockade out and we get the licenses flowing, that is a good sign. It's still very muddled. So I'm with Anthony on here. I'm still waiting for more information about when, the whole licensing process happens and timelines surrounding about that. But this is definitely positive news. It's a good step in the right direction, and hopefully we can move forward.
Well, I think if anything, there's a lot of work and a lot of cleanup that needs to be done within the state, but I guess it goes to like some of the stuff that we've been hearing recently, which is why this state or this market could be the biggest cannabis market in the world if it's structured the right way. But today's announcement obviously is a big step in the right direction, right?
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. In my own self-interest, obviously I want the MSOs, most notably Curaleaf, the cannabis, to get GTI to get operational in the state. But there's people's livelihoods at stake here. There were farmers in upstate New York. There were people that pivoted and retrofitted their business for the coming cannabis sector. And those people are going broke. I've heard stories of people committing suicide. Like this market needs to get moving forward and getting moving in the right direction, because people's livelihoods have been at stake. And they'll continue to be at stake until this is completely rectified.
It's crazy that's happened.
Not just the MSOs, it's also with the social justice licensing aspect of it. They've sort of kind of botched some of the support that they were going to give to these applicants. And these people aren't open on time. So the independent operators. So it's been bad for MSOs, but it's also been bad for the indie guys as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to our next topic. In Washington, oh man, I don't even know where to begin with this. Our good friend Chuck Schumer, or should I say Chuck E. Cheese, at it again. He announced his formal letter agenda for the final working period, and no surprise among cannabis investors, SAFER was not included in this. Anthony, I'll begin with you. In light of all these recent legislative developments and rumors that are circulating it around, is there any way at all that you're surprised that this was not included?
So this has actually taken another twist since I did my show notes for this afternoon.
Okay.
So Chuck puts out his formal agenda for the final working period um, for this year. He outlines everything in a nice 2-page letter. What he's going to do. It includes the NDAA. There is no mention of SAFE in there. 2 hours later, he retweets a story from November 20th where him and Al Harrington sat down with a Yahoo reporter outlining safe banking and is like, oh, I can't wait to get safe banking down the road. It's like, well, you're kind of just contradicting what you just said earlier. Like if safe banking was a priority and you weren't pandering, like what it wouldn't be the case. Why not include that in your agenda? Obviously, it's a black reporter. Obviously, Al Harrington, NBA star, also African American. I mean, a lot of people for a long time have really thought that Chuck is using his cannabis rhetoric just to pander to certain communities, to pander to certain voters. And I mean, it's starting to look that way. Like I said before, like don't talk anymore. Show us until he gets safer done or until he gets it to where he needs to get it to, and he can. Like no one cares anymore. You're not gaining any will with anyone in the cannabis industry moving forward.
Yeah. This is
I think people are like have to stop reading the tea leaves with Chuck, because a couple of weeks ago he actually was talking about how safer banking was going to move forward in the House. He was just trying to coalesce a little bit more support among the GOP, inferring that it was only a vote or 2 or 3 away from passing, and all of a sudden he sort of omits it from his agenda. So it's like it kind of goes back and forth. I think people are killing themselves. I read some of the popular forums out there. I read Twitter, and everybody's always like trying to figure out what Chuck is doing, when things are going to move forward. Just stop thinking about it and just let the process happen when it happens. I know there's so many investors out there and a lot of price action predicates on a good result, but you can't predict Washington. That's one thing that we've probably seen over the past 4 years. Don't predict what these politicians are doing. Just let the process work itself out.
Rescheduling has definitely taken over the interest amongst cannabis investors versus safe. This safe thing is just, it's never ending. John Anthony Woods Hutchins writes, good afternoon. It still shocks me that this doesn't become legalized across the states. There's money to be made, taxes to be gained on, simply for financial business, and taxes has to happen. Amen to that. And that is the truth.
Sounds like John has more common sense than anybody that's currently sitting up in Washington.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's long overdue.
Well overdue.
It's also worth noting that we had Don Murphy on, the cannabis lobbyist, 3-4 weeks ago, and he was very adamant in saying that cannabis is not going to be included in the NDAA, which is what people are hoping for the previous 2 years, and it never arrived. So if you think that it's going to show up on that military appropriations bill, or defense appropriations bill, I wouldn't count on that. But who knows?
Paisley, good to see you. He writes, please only state facts. We'll state facts.
No, he's talking about the 90-day timeline from the DEA.
Yeah.
Which I said on the original episode when the HHS recommendation came out, I mentioned the 90-day timeline. I then looked into it and completely retracted that statement and said that it was fallacy moving forward. So, I mean, no, I did not flip-flop. I got my facts straight, but everybody was harping on the 90-day timeline when I said that.
Yeah, we're going to actually do an informal video this week that outlines the whole process of when it comes to rescheduling for the DA to understand. I want people to watch that and understand what the process is from point A to point Z to just get a better understanding. But just to remember, it's not a 90-day basic announcement from the DEA based on the recommendation of the HHS, is what we've learned, correct?
Yeah, correct.
All right. Next headline, let's move. German lawmakers, news out of Germany. We actually were at that conference a couple of weeks ago, Anthony, in New York, where we met a few German people that said adult use is going to happen in Q1. And based on the news here today, Ben, some German lawmakers have agreed to revise a marijuana legalization bill, which is, a big step in the right direction. So based on your latest research pertaining to this, what have you learned?
Yeah, this is important because it sets the stage for a final vote in the national parliament next week. And this is another one that had been shifting timelines of when the vote was going to take place. It was supposed to originally take place in the summer, and then it got delayed. And there's some back and forth in the Bundestag, and they're talking about adding more provisions, and then they made it stricter, and some cannabis proponents came in and said, "Oh, this is too strict." So now it looks like they've amended it. It looks like it's in basically the final stage of before it's being going to be voted for next week, and hopefully, if it passes, then legalization will be good to go in Germany, and just a matter of implementation of the bill. So this is a good result, good news, and looking forward to seeing what the result is next week if the vote does take place.
That would be huge if we do see
Huge.
that. Huge.
Huge.
And
It would be awesome.
and what that'll do for the overall industry if we see adult use at some point in Q1.
It would be awesome. And I mean, from my understanding, one of the things that was holding it up was public consumption. I think they just reduced it from you can't consume within 200 meters of a school to now you can't consume within 100 meters of a school. And then it was also around the actual severity of infractions if you're caught selling to minors, which throw the book at them. If you're selling cannabis to minors, like,
Yeah, of course.
you've got no place really in society. So I mean, it seems like it's finally getting done. It'd be amazing. Obviously, companies like Curaleaf would be a big beneficiary first,
Huge.
as they're actually operating over there. But it's big.
Do you find that when you look at public perception that North America is quite a bit further ahead when it comes to cannabis than the German market?
I don't know much about German social norms, but if I had to guess, what I do know is that they're quite conservative as a whole for a society.
Yeah.
I would have to guess that when it comes to cannabis, we're probably more liberal in this country.
Yeah. Well, when you outline some of the things that were just outlined within this bill about being consumption 200 meters to 100 meters, that sort of thing around schools. Important stuff, but this is all doable stuff to get this across the line in a relatively quick fashion, I would think. But
yeah, but I mean, I also am a firm. I might get some flack for this, but I mean, I'm also a firm believer of you probably shouldn't be consuming cannabis in public. Like, just because I want to be smoking doesn't mean that I have to subject the person that's next to me to that smoke. I mean, cannabis, when you're smoking it, especially in a combustible flower form, it's intrusive. I mean, I'm against public consumption for the most part when it comes to actually combusting joints, blunts, or anything like that.
Yeah, be curious to know what percentage of Germans still smoke cigarettes. I would think it's still pretty
Probably
high.
a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah.
All right, let's now direct our attention to the American market and a closer look at the potential expansion of adult use cannabis in select states that ultimately will shed light on key factors and scenarios that could shape the industry moving forward. So I understand this correctly. The analyst Pablo Zuanich recently outlined which states could potentially begin adult use by 2025. So first off, based on that report, which states are we looking at that could be next in line, Anthony, as far as passing adult use in the next year and a half?
So this was interesting. I mean, if you listen to these shows, I mean, a lot of the growth thesis and a lot of the thesis for several different companies is rooted in the adult use markets flipping. Most notably Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Minnesota coming online. And then he also had, there's one other market here, Virginia. It was an interesting report. I don't want to say it's too forward looking, but I mean, the numbers and the percentages of companies' EBITDA the benefits that companies can get from an EBITDA and a market cap perspective from these assumptions are explosive. I mean, he's talking triple digit percentage gains in EBITDA for some companies. He's talking triple digit implications on market cap for different companies. It's in a very, very interesting report. What I found that was the most interesting was on a comparative basis how Pennsylvania actually performs compared to Florida. So Pennsylvania is tracking for 1.5 billion with 178 dispensaries.
Okay.
Florida, I think, is at right now, it's around a $2 billion market. And I mean, we've got 606 dispensaries currently in the state. On a per dispensary basis, PA is performing much, much better than Florida. I think we're going to see that maybe flip-flop on adult use, as you'll see Florida get a much more Florida companies will be a much larger beneficiary from adult use with the tourism that we see down here.
Why do you think Pennsylvania is performing better right now than Florida?
I don't know, actually. I read the report this morning. I know it was published a couple of days ago. I mean, I'm going to dig deeper into it. I'm going to actually read through it on my flight tomorrow to Vegas in detail. But one of the main takeaways that I did want to find out is really why that Pennsylvania consumer is or retail is performing at such a higher number than what's in Florida.
Hence
Yeah,
the reason
especially with Pennsylvania is a mature medical market as well. So it's not like it's immature and there's a lot more room for growth. So that does seem intriguing to me.
Yeah, it was a good report. Pablo's good. He dove into it. I mean, a lot of it, I don't like to get too pie in the sky with like triple digit implications on EBITDA and on EBITDA and market cap. But I mean, he had something like a 700% growth potential for a name like Jushi. I don't know what his implications were on the debt to equity ratio in the business and how that comes into the fold. Like I said, I'm going to take a much deeper dive into this tomorrow on my flights out to MJ Biz. But I mean, it was compelling to say the least. He's got Trulieve actually increasing their flower sales by up to 180% on adult use. So, I mean, those implications for Trulieve are looking nice if something like that were to happen.
Is that doable? You think that's realistic?
I think Kim's strategy has always been to conquer the adult use market when it comes online in Florida. You look at the stores that she has, you look at the footprint that she has. Adult use is going to make cannabis sales a lot more accessible to the masses.
Yeah.
If you're going on that assumption, the person with the most doors should win that battle. So, I mean, seeing her flower volume sales go up 180% on adult use, I think is a safe assumption. And if she does do that,
extrapolate the customers too. I mean, if they're doing this for medical, like if adult use does come into play in Florida, then their customer base is it's going to at least triple. So, I mean, the 108% just from the raw numbers seems like, back in napkin math seems doable. And in terms of like triple digit anything, we should all, of course, be cognizant of the fact that Stiefel had a $132 price target on Trulieve for the longest time, like 2 years ago. So
was it $132?
Yeah, it was nuts.
It was nuts. Yeah,
it was nuts.
So just be careful when it comes to any sort of extrapolations with huge things with analysts. Zuanich is great. He's one of the better ones, but a lot of assumptions that go into that when you're looking 3, 4, or 5 years down the road.
You got to love some of those Canadian bankers.
No, that was in New York.
This was
New York. That was coming out of New York. Yeah, that was Vivian Azar. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Vivian Azar that had that target on
$132.
Vivian was Cowan. This was Steve.
Oh, Cowan. Cowan, you're right. You're right.
She had the big price target on Tilray, I think.
That's
140-ish.
Yeah, where are we at now? 2?
What was Trulieve's all-time high? Was it 60?
No.
You're on that? I thought it was.
Yeah, Trulieve in Canada was. It was like 50.
Was it?
Probably like 55 at least. I could check now.
Yeah, I was going to say mid 40s. So that would translate to mid 50s in CAD.
Yeah. Really Reels writes, PA, they love the weed. 100% they do.
They obviously do. I mean, it's a strong market. I'm mostly using that report just to get some macro level intel into the markets.
Yeah.
I'd said that this morning actually on Twitter. Someone was like, "Oh, well, pumping MSO bullshit is blah blah blah." I was like, "Dude, people should be reading this to get data into the markets for the companies that they're interested in investing in, extrapolate their own opinion, and take it from there. Not take anything that you see at face value."
Okay, the all-time high price in Trulieve, just to finish that conversation, was 67.45.
Oh wow!
So that's I got 53.54. So that's U.S. aesthetic expiration outlines. Mohammed Shaheen writes, "Forget Schumer in Congress. When DEA removes it from Schedule 1 to a 3, safe banking really doesn't matter. I say before Santa comes, we will hear something from the DEA." Again, we're hearing stuff no one really knows, but we're hearing on our trip to New York that we could see something Q1. But again, who knows?
I mean, we talked to a lot of, like I said on the episode before Thanksgiving, we talked to a lot of very well-educated, very well-connected people.
Yes.
And it was all over the place. it was all right. End of Q1, end of Q2, by December, maybe later next year.
I never heard December. I kept hearing end of Q1. That's what I heard.
I had mixed answers the entire time.
Yeah.
And that's why when we came back, I was like, you know what? No one knows.
Yeah.
It's great. It makes for great conversation, but no one really knows.
Before we jump into our next segment, I think it is just real quick. You guys could touch on this. Paisley writes, do you guys think tax harvesting season will have an impact on MJ stocks like it has historically in the past? What do you guys think?
Personally, I don't think so.
Why?
On most of them, just because MSOs is only down marginally on the year, and you usually need to have a big loss to really harvest those taxes, like 30% loss plus. And then that makes a difference on your return. Right now, most of these stocks are kind of at par. They're probably mostly down, but not more than 5-10%. Select ones might be, though, the ones that are down quite a lot might be, but overall, I would say mostly no.
Yeah. Well said.
I'm a bet on that. That's
makes
exactly the right answer.
And that's actually a really strong thing this year. This is the first year, I think, over the last at least 3 that we don't have to worry about tax loss selling. Because if you remember the previous 2 years, it was just a constant drip down. This year, dynamic is different, probably because most of the selling's already taken place. Now people are looking forward to the future, and there's not much to wring out of it on the short side now. So it's just it's just languishing until you get that catalyst. But there's not much tax harvesting overall this year at these levels.
Great feedback, brother. That's like clear skies and barbecue season. You couldn't be more accurate with that call.
Yeah. Well, it's just what the price action says. MSO started the year at like just over 7, I believe, and it closed today at 6.75 last I checked, give or take a few pennies. So that's really not that much.
That makes sense. This is the TDR Trade to Black podcast here at the Benzinga Television Network. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Benjamin A. Smith, Anthony Varrell joining us as well. This concludes the first segment, Into the Wire, outlining all the biggest headlines in cannabis, psychedelics, crypto, and AI. Today it was all cannabis, but now we move into our second segment, which is our daily movers. We begin with you, Anthony. First company that you're watching, big earnings later this week, and that's Consortium.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring it up because they've got earnings on Wednesday. I know they rescheduled to the 29th. This is going to be a telling quarter. There's going to be you're going to get vision into their cash position. You're going to get vision into their Florida business. I'm either going to increase my position on this or I'm going to sell my position on this quarterly report. So, I mean,
you want to maybe outline what you mean by that?
What do you mean? I'm either going to increase my position or I'm going to sell my position. They've got funky debt. Their debt to equity ratio is less than desirable. They'd be a very large beneficiary of Florida adult use, but fundamentally, if it looks like it could be something like a going concern, or if it looks like they're going to have to raise money, I'll probably cut bait and then look into the future. I'm not in love with it. Like I said, it's a call option and a lottery ticket on the Florida market. Yep. I do think that their Florida business is still doing well, as a lot of my friends who aren't in the industry and have no idea about big cannabis at large, for some reason, they're all patients of Consortium. They like the product. They like the experience. I've heard that from a lot of people. That being said, I know that Ben has brought up that their cash position was of concern last quarter. Nothing leads me to believe that cash position has improved. But yeah, Wednesday morning, I will be up going through the earnings, and I'll be making a decision, like I said, to whether increase my position or cut it and go somewhere else.
Thanks for explaining that.
No problem.
Anyways, all right. Stock number 2, move to the psychedelic space, and more notably, Ben Cybin. Big week coming up for them.
Yeah, very big week. October 31st, they announced their interim phase 2 data for a compound CYB003, the psilocybin compound. And of course, the matter scores were, off the scales in terms of depression improvement, 14-point reduction there. So it was very good. Heads above and shoulders above anybody else. Compass had, I think, just over 6, although that was treatment-resistant depression, so they had the harder lift there. But still, these numbers were phenomenal. In these results coming up on the 30th, to be presented on the 30th in New York, we're going to see the 16 milligram dose as opposed to the 12 milligram dose the first time. And we're also going to see data, presumably, from the follow-up dosing, because that was the matter score happened on basically a single dose. So, we have two things to watch out for. I'm going to listen to the live stream presentation. You can go to the last press release if you want to listen to it as well. And then hopefully talk to Doug afterwards and get a report, see what he thinks. But overall, I think it's very exciting research. And I'm looking forward to see whether, the numbers improved with the higher dose and what the follow-on dose data resulted in.
Confirming as well, Doug Drysdale will be on our live stream this upcoming Friday, which is one day after these results. How do you guys, so they're actually doing a presentation in New York after the results are announced on Thursday, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. They're doing a presentation. They're doing a Q&A. They're also having a live stream of the results to go over them. And, that is open to the public.
What do you guys see? Like, how do you, like, the industry is obviously, as we've said the last couple of weeks, it's very dormant right now. But if we get positive results, like, could you see this thing moving, or is this a sell on news type situation?
Personally, I think there's more upside potential than downside, because even if that 16 milligram dose data doesn't prove to be all that great, all that different from baseline on the 12 milligram, they still have that 12 milligram, right? It just means that that particular dosing profile is not optimal as the 12. So nothing's going to change the fact from the interim data of what we saw with the 12 milligrams. So, I think everything is sort of gravy right now. If it's even better with the 16, then great. That's even better. That gives something that the market can look forward to. But nothing's going to take away from the results from the 12. And I think there is, if I had to guess, a little bit more upside on the numbers potential than downside. So, let's see what happens. I do not own a position, although we work with Cybin. We'll be looking at the results and reporting back.
Yeah. All right, last company we want to look at, or last stock, I should say, Anthony, New Lake Capital Partners trades on the OTC under the ticker symbol NLCP. Why is this grabbing your attention?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not grabbing my attention from a price action standpoint. I had a conversation with a couple of older gentlemen that I look for investment ideas, and kind of a couple of guys that I bounce ideas off of, kind of like from a mentor perspective. And I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about right now hedges on Section 3 or Schedule 3, safer banking.
Yeah.
There's headline risk there. There's political risk there. If you want, and this is by no means a vote of saying go buy NLCP or any of the underlying REITs in the cannabis space, and they are a client of ours. Anthony's a good friend of the program. But from an investing perspective, if you're going to or want to be levered to the cannabis space, and you really take a look around, the REITs really aren't subject to that headline risk from a regulatory perspective. They're not sitting there at the mercy of 280E. Their operators are, but their operators are paying those leases with or without 280E. Why not have a position in one of these REITs in your portfolio and be getting paid a dividend while you're waiting for the political climate to improve, or while you're waiting for these headlines? If 280E does, I mean, if Schedule 3 and SAFER doesn't happen, like, we're in trouble for a while.
Yeah.
If you and I want to be invested and levered to this sector. I want to be able to have some of that upside value, and that upside value, that's not correlated to the powers that be, is the real estate sector. So, I mean, that's why I'm going to be adding these REITs to my portfolio on a go forward basis, because they're not subject to that risk moving forward.
I think that's a great point that Anthony brings up. Very, very good point, is the fact that it's like these REITs are a good way to diversify your portfolio. And there's not actually that many ways to diversify in a true cannabis play in this sector, right? You got the big MSOs, you got some peripheral plays or so forth, and then the REITs. And the REITs are not subject to the headline risk. Right, those businesses are going to operate. Cannabis sales are going to grow from 30 billion annually in the U.S. to 100 billion by 2030. I mean, that's going to happen. That is set in stone. Just a matter of how profitable these companies are going to be, what their tax burden is going to be. But that, the industry is going to be there. It's going to keep growing, and a company like New Lake is going to be the beneficiary of that. So no headline risk there. It just dividends and positive earnings for the most part, and stable business.
Yeah. One stock we need to mention as well in the psychedelic space, Awaken was up 120% today. OWA actually
volume?
outlined that. No, it was up. I'm just looking right now. It's closed at, I think it was 12 cents Canadian I saw.
Was it on? It wasn't on volume.
No, it was not on volume.
Yeah, and also I want everybody listening, don't think that I'm getting negative on the sector or thinking that Schedule 3, I keep calling it Section 3, Schedule 3 or safer banking doesn't happen. I mean, I do think that we're going to get those within the next 6 months, but I mean, you should always be positioned for something not happening that we don't have control of.
Yeah.
Especially if you want, especially getting paid to wait via a dividend.
Yeah. We have actually reached out to Anthony Tennyson, OA, as far as Awaken is concerned. We plan to have him on, if not this week, the next week, just to go over some of the stuff that happened last week or was it last week or 2 weeks ago? But starting to see the stock rally a little bit here. But yeah, you wonder what's going on here and what's creating. But we'll get more information as to what happened with the Neo Exchange, now SIBO, and what the plans are moving forward and what all that stuff entailed. But Anthony will have a full in-depth interview with us that'll explain a lot of those questions that many of you have right now.
You know, we talked about that actually when the news happened, and we said, and we explained the catalyst for the move to the downside. And if they got relisted and there was no fundamental change in their trials or their business, that it could be a rebounder. And hopefully, you know, if they solve those issues with the SIBO, maybe that's what happened today. But
yeah, that's definitely what I'm hearing as well, that there is nothing fundamentally wrong with the trial at all. So as far as the other stuff, we're trying to find that out, but we'll make sure that we'll get all the details for you guys within the next week or so. There was one other person that wrote, somebody was reporting, can you report on slang worldwide? I know we've talked a little bit about that off and on over the last few months, but you guys paid much attention to that company?
I like slang from a business perspective. The financial engineering is crap.
Yeah, you said that many times.
Just to be honest, slang's got a good business. They've got a good distribution business with good brands and good markets. They had very favorable growth prospects coming out of the gate. They did a couple of financings, and just the financial engineering and the pipes aren't good. And unfortunately, if the financial engineering is not sound, you can have a really good asset and have a very shitty stock.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what it is. But I mean, yeah, slang is, you could argue slang's undervalued, and you can argue that slang is a good business, just with very less than favorable structure.
Yeah. Lorene Black writes, which states are going next for recreational use? We kind of outlined that, which was Florida, potentially, Pennsylvania, and Virginia.
Well, pretty interesting news out today. South Dakota, they're going to bring an initiative there to get enough signatures to bring it out in South Dakota. It was defeated a couple of years ago, but it looks like they're bringing it back. And South Dakota is the ultimate, like, conservative red, state. So if it can make it there, I'm just, it's not obviously a big market, but if it can make it there, that'll be a real telling to show how far cannabis has come in terms of sentiment and acceptance in the U.S.
I liked your explanation, but Dino Sestito writes, I would expect some tax loss selling, especially those who bought from late August to mid-September. And given the illiquid nature of both stocks, I wouldn't be surprised if we go lower in December. Could be, but I like what you said, Ben. We're not really seeing much of a loss or a gain with MSOs over the course of 12 months.
Yeah, I would say too. Yeah, it's also possible because tax loss selling is not limited to just last year. It can go back at least 3.
Good point.
So it could be more. Don't quote me on that, but it goes back more than just the last year. So it is possible that you could see some, and certain issues that are down more than the average definitely could see some. But I would just say on aggregate, if you just were to look at the price action, where MSOs now, where it is today, and the component stocks are all relatively in that corridor, I think on average there won't be that much, at least compared to last couple years.
Is that the thermos you got from Nicholas?
It is the cannabis.
Those are sharp,
one of the MSOs that will benefit from today's lawsuit getting settled.
Very much so.
It actually, hopefully, will get that adult use dispensary open in Brooklyn, because that place will be an absolute gold mine.
There's your testimonial YouTube short right there.
Did the company pay you to get that thermos?
We're coming to Brooklyn.
Cannabis. They're coming to Brooklyn.
How much do they pay you to get that thermos on, Anthony?
Not enough. Great thermos, though.
That's another good way of monetizing.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a logo on my hat. I'll get a logo on my mic. I'll have every MSO on.
Trying to get rid of these TDR logos and like let's start getting some swag from some of our clients, right?
Yeah.
That concludes our second segment, Daily Movers. This is the TDR Traded Block podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network. All right, we are set for Las Vegas. You and I are on a flight. Ben, you're holding the fort down again this week. We will be doing a live stream podcast, 1 o'clock Vegas time, 4 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday with Anthony Cogniglio and Rob Seacrest at the Planet 13 dispensary, the largest cannabis dispensary in the U.S. We're actually going to be interviewing their CEO at 12 o'clock. That'll be pushed out on Thursday, so it should be a very fun week. But more importantly, we're going to be obviously networking, talking to a lot of people in the space, and whatever we hear, we will make sure we communicate that to you, the audience base, once we're back. And then Friday, Doug Drysdale comes on to talk about their latest data announcements, the results, and should be an interesting week for Cybin. So to recap, Chuck Schumer excludes SAFE in his latest letter agenda. We outline what adult use cannabis states could be included by 2025. They include Florida, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Germany revises marijuana legalization as the country inches closer to passing adult use cannabis. And our Daily Movers, what we're watching is Consortium, earnings later this week, New Lake Capitals, along with Cybin. Anthony, safe travels to Vegas. Look forward to seeing you out west. And Ben, you have a good week, brother.
Thanks, guys. We'll be in contact. And quick shout out to the canisters.io on Twitter. He just posted the Consortium sales, flower sales in Florida. So appreciate that and hoping for good earnings. We'll have more on that when they come.
Happy Glass, TDR, you are the brand. Nice. And Stephen Boyd, we need this swag. This is the TDR Traded Black podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network. Enjoy your day. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you.